Welcome everyone to the premiere of Paper Sludge Academy. Today we will be talking about the origin of paper sludge. Just a short disclaimer before we start. This session will be recorded and then published at DBG's website. The chat box will be turned off, but for your questions you can use the Q&A room where our team will be helping you and assisting you through your questions. And at the end of the session there will be a Q&A session where we'll be answering your questions in live. As one of your hosts today, I'm Utku Aydinci. I am the sustainability specialist at DBG. I am focused on fertilizers, regulatory framework, and product development.
Good afternoon. My name is Lara Labotic. I work as sustainability coordinator at DBG, and my main role revolves around selection of our feedstock. So in this case, this means collecting the paper sludge, analyzing it, and checking the regulatory compliance. I will briefly walk you through our agenda of today's presentation. So first, I will introduce DBG, who we are and what is our purpose. Then I will highlight the basic facts around paper sludge, and then Utku will take you through the journey of sludge production, which essentially starts already at pulp and paper making processes. Then I will dive deeper into the sludge streams, the variety of sludge streams that we have and their characteristics. I will also highlight what is the main challenge when processing paper sludge, and finally Utku will give you some solutions and ways that we could upcycle this material. So about DBG Bioenergy, we are an Amsterdam-based company founded in 2011. We are founded in response to the urgent need to tackle climate change and to reduce the environmental footprint of the paper industry. So in other words, we process and we upcycle paper sludge into three different valuable streams. And namely, these are bio-LNG, liquid CO2, and green fertilizers. So a bit of basic facts around paper sludge. Just on EU level, each year there is approximately 11 million metric tons of this material produced. Currently, it is more than half of it is incinerated, followed by landfilling and other methods of disposal. However, each one of these comes with a set of environmental and economical challenges. And as we are aware these days, there are many regulations which are becoming increasingly more stringent, which is why this is a pressing issue for the paper industry as well. Why we like paper sludge? Because it is a continuous feedstock. It is constantly produced throughout the entire year. So unlike the energy crops, it doesn't experience seasonal fluctuations. And also it has a high energy density content. So for example, one of our plants is designed to produce 270,000 tons is designed to process 270,000 tons of paper sludge. And with this amount, we produce approximately the same amount of biogas as we were if we were to use 1 million tons of manure. So on average, the energy density is 4 times higher than using manure.
Okay, so let's start with pulp and paper making process. As we all know, there are two main inputs of this industry. The first is coming from the forests in terms of trees, and they're used as fresh wood inputs. And the second is the wastewater. These inputs are coming into the paper and pulp factories where the paper pulp has been produced, and then it moves into a paper production rolls. And then we get the output of paper sludge plus wastewater, and then of course the paper pulp to be produced in the paper industry. We will now dive deep into how this paper sludge, paper pulp has been created. The fresh wood stocks has been turned into wood logs, and then these are then grinded into wood chips. The main output of this process is bark, which is usually used as an energy recovery material or fuel in the industry, or used by other industries to process other products. The wood chips are put into a digester where there is high pressure and high temperature, and they are added with white liquor, which is also known as the detergent of this process, and some other chemicals. When the wood chips are in the digester, it consists of 50% of water, 25% of cellulose fibers, and 25% of lignin. These cellulose fibers are used to create ready-to-use pulp. First, they are being washed, and then they are being bleached until they are white enough to be used by the industry. But the rest, lignin and the white liquor, are evaporated with the water inside to take the water out, and then it turns into a strong black liquor. It is a really condensed material. Then this is moved into a recovery boiler where it has been boiled and it becomes as a green liquor. Once we add the lime on top, it becomes a white liquor, and it is turned into the digester to use as a white liquor as well. This is why the craft process is making it useful to use it in the process and to makes the paper in mass production ready. And then the recovery boiler has been used for the energy recovery in terms of steam and electricity throughout this process, or sometimes in some cases shared with other industrial activities. The other stream that we talked about is waste paper. Waste paper has been diluted with water and then runs into a pulper, where it is separated with the rejected materials, which are generally plastic, glass, and metal. The dirty pulp, which is in many cases is inked, has to be removed by the ink. So the surfactant, soap, and other chemicals has been used to reach to the de-inked pulp. Then this is moved to the bleaching tank, where the pulp is bleached enough, whitened enough to move on with the paper production process. About the paper making process, the ready-to-use pulp that I briefly explained to you has been added with filler additives and water, so it is diluted, and then it moves into a mixer. Then in the mixing process, it is also de-aerated to take the air bubbles out. It moves into a head box, where in the head box it has a composition of 1% fiber and 99% of water. Then this mixture is moving into polyester threads. This is used to give the shape of a paper pulp in terms of paper, and it's also used to remove the excess water. Then it moves into a shaping and drying process, where the moisture has been decreased to 7 and 8%. Then the paper is actually formed, and it is wounded around reels, which is also called calendars. And these are the heated rolls that are shaping the paper in terms of what we use today after the print shops are making it ready for us. Before it is ready, it is wounded around a tambour and cut into smaller pieces in terms of customer requirements.
So as we have seen now, the pulping and paper making process is quite complex. And during this, there are several stages which we can say they determine the characteristics and also the behavior of paper sludge, as we will see later on. So for example, starting from the choice of raw material, if we talk about raw wood, we can still differentiate between softwood and hardwood. And then there is also a scenario in which waste paper is used as a raw material. Then there are different types of pulping processes. So in this presentation, we only focused on the kraft pulping and the recycled pulping, which in this case is called the de-inked pulp. But there is also the thermomechanical pulping, there is chemothermomechanical pulping, really all kinds of different processes. Then we have paper making processes, and whereas the philosophy of paper making is more or less the same, each paper making process will be carefully tailored to suit the requirements of the end product. So, and the portfolio of paper end products is very broad. So we have the graphic paper, we have newsprint, corrugated cardboard, there's tissue paper, sanitary paper, etc., etc. And regardless if pulp and paper factories are integrated or they operate separately, normally at the end of each of these processes, there is a wastewater treatment stage, and there we witness the primary and secondary wastewater treatment. And in this stage, as we will see in the next slide, there are different kinds of sludge streams that are generated. So in this example, we have a recycled paper mill. And so like during each one of the stages of paper production, there are multiple waste streams exiting the factory, and they're all jointly entering the wastewater treatment system. And first thing that happens there is we have the screening process, during which large objects such as metals and plastics, glass, really big lumps of fiber are also removed. And this stream, we call it the meal rejects, and it looks very messy compared to other sludge streams. And basically after that process, the rest of the waste stream, it moves and it enters the primary treatment process, which is mostly physico-chemical process. So it consists of a series of sedimentation tanks, and it works on the principle that the heavier particles, such as the residual fiber, they sink and they're collected at the bottom of the tank, and they form what is known as primary sludge. And this type of sludge has high organic content and a high carbon to nitrogen ratio. The remaining wastewater moves and enters the secondary treatment, which is a biological process, and it is run through the aerated lagoons. And in there, the microorganisms are used to clean the water. And after this stage, the water is typically considered safe, and it can be ready to be released back into the environment. And what is collected at secondary treatment is also known as secondary sludge. We also call this type of sludge the biosludge, and compared to the primary sludge, it has significantly lower CN ratio, but it is higher in nutrient content, and because of the residual bacterial mass, it can have a stronger smell compared to the primary sludge. The two streams are sometimes mixed together, and in that case, they form a combination, and of course, the properties depend on the mixing ratio. Only applicable for recycling paper mills is the de-inked sludge, and this one is created through dissolved air flotation process, and it is characteristical for higher inorganic portions, so ash, minerals, ink particles, and different kind of fillers. And well, if we talk about anaerobic digestion of paper sludge as a response or as a more environmentally friendly technology of disposing and treating paper sludge, typically this has certain challenges, and they mostly stem from the chemical composition of paper sludge. So as we already mentioned, there is a high lignocellulosic content. So we talk about 40 to 60% of cellulose on average. Also, if in case of using raw wood as a raw material, there could be traces of lignin, and there is normally 0 to 60% of ash found on dry bases. But even more than that, what is problematic is the arrangement of those fibers within the paper sludge. So due to the paper making process itself, the fibers are already mechanically partly degraded and exposed. And so they tend to become entangled, and then they tend to form a certain web structure. And because of this, the water capacity can be extremely high. So paper sludge is known as material which holds a lot of water, and because of this, it has very high viscosity. So in practical terms, this means that it's a type of material which is very difficult to handle mechanically. So mixing, pumping, any kind of mechanical treatment comes with a set of problems. And oftentimes we witness mixers breaking down. So it can be very challenging. In addition to that, the cellulose fibers, they can be physically blocked by lignin. In that case, the microorganisms that are typically found in the anaerobic reactors, they cannot access the organic material, and they cannot convert it into biogas. So in other words, it lowers the biomethane potential of paper sludge. DBG, however, relies on using the pretreatment technology called epicellulose XT. This is a patented enzymatic solution developed by Episome Biotechnologies. And by using this before applying anaerobic digestion of paper sludge, we managed to increase the biomethane potential by 60% when comparing untreated with treated samples. And even more, we managed to decrease viscosity. So whereas previously we had some dry matter, they behaved like solids, almost like concrete. After applying epicellulose XT, all the viscosity levels dropped below 2000 centipoise. So in other words, we made the material easy for mechanical handling.
Okay, so now we learned about the challenges and the solution that DBG is bringing into in this industry. So the paper making process has an outcome of a paper sludge, which is mostly, in many cases, has been either incinerated or put into landfills. However, DBG's solution is providing another chance to the paper sludge. Moving the paper sludge by barges to DBG's plant, and then these paper sludge will be pre-treated. After the pre-treatment process that Lara explained you, it will be moved into anaerobic digestion chambers where the gasification process is starting. The gasification process is giving us the chance to separate methane and CO2 from the paper sludge, which we turn into bio-LNG and liquid CO2. As in many processes, there is also waste of this action, which is called digestate in this case. And the digestate is not disposed; it is used as green fertilizers at DBG, and we are proudly making it ready for the use of farmers. Where and when it is going to be available. DBG's first plant is going to be in Delfzijl, in Groningen seaports in the Netherlands, where we will be producing 270,000 tons of paper sludge per annually, as Lara said before. And then the output is going to be 14,000 tons of bio-LNG, 35,000 tons of liquid CO2, and 180,000 tons of green fertilizers. And this will all be ready and operational in the first quarter of 2023. So coming to the end of our presentation, the takeaways that we want to talk about is that we see as Paper Sludge Academy innovation as not only as a solution, we see this as a legacy for the next generations for a greener future. And we know that systems thinking approach as a mentality is a way to go to diagnose the problems in our industries one by one at spot in time. And the solution is, in many cases, has been created by the nature itself. With the nature-inspired solutions, we can find and create new solutions that are also called as biomimicry and to make a better and circular industries. So with this short presentation, we gave you some information about the origin of paper sludge. However, this is only the first presentation that Paper Sludge Academy will be doing. And the second is going to be about waste management in the paper industry, which will be happening on 7th of April. We would like to invite you to that session as well. You can follow us on our social media accounts, and me, Lara, and other team members of DBG Bioenergy is happy to answer your questions, and for further inquiries, please contact us. Now we would like to give a pause of 3 minutes for you to digest the information that we give and to read your questions. So the first question is about the types of paper sludge. I will read it to you, Lara. Are all types of paper sludge and paper mill waste streams suitable for our process?
Right. So in principle, we can process all types of paper sludges, but that doesn't mean that we don't have our preference. So we really appreciate paper sludges which have the high cellulose content, so especially the primary paper sludge. And of course, sometimes we see that a combination between primary and secondary sludge, it actually works better, because then we also balance the CN ratio, and the secondary sludge can sometimes add extra nutrients. Let's put it like that. So really we can process all of them.
Okay, are you ready for the second question?
I think so.
I get it. Okay. How much energy do you use to utilize the paper sludge and biogas? Do you really produce energy out of this waste, or using more energy than you produce?
So in both the pre-treatment and the anaerobic digestion process, they both operate at mesophilic conditions, approximately 37 degrees, which implies the lower energy consumption process. And more than that, we have smart energy solutions. So we spend approximately 5% of the total energy that is generated.
Okay. Really good. We have more questions coming in. How do you collect sludges coming out of wastewater plants? And what is the commercial case for both sides?
Right. So for sludges coming from wastewater plants, and in general, how we collect sludges, we have a certain screening process. So we like to scan sludges both for biogas potential, and also, of course, we have to see later on if they would be applied as green fertilizers. We have to make sure that we don't have high heavy metal content. So we do our screening process, and based on that, we decide which sludges we can work with.
Okay. Another question. What does your cost-benefit analysis tell you about the geographical locations that would make economical sense to source the sludge?
Right. So in terms of distances that we can cover or that it makes sense to cover, by truck we can cover 400 kilometers, and by barges, which is our preference, and majority of our sludge streams are going to be transported via barges, we can reach up to 1,500 kilometers. So it depends, of course, on the location, how close it is to the mill. We try to take into account all the logistical aspects, and of course go for the more environmentally friendly solution.
Okay. How does the filler ash content of the sludge influence the output of the process?
So this is applicable for, if we remember at the presentation, there was the de-inked sludge, which can contain high portions of ash. And ash, we noticed that it acts as inert material. So it neither aids to the biogas production, but it doesn't inhibit it. But we do have a benefit from putting this kind of sludge in the digester as well, because we notice that it buffers the pH. So actually, overall, it can benefit the process and the microbials that are inside.
Okay, another question. Your presentation is about craft process only. Yes, that is true. Did not get why the mechanical and CTMT process was excluded in your arguments.
Okay. Yeah, so we gave the craft pulping as an example, but if this question refers to, if the question is like whether our process can handle the sludges originating from thermomechanical pulping and chemothermomechanical pulping, the answer is of course yes. We just didn't want to make the presentation too crowded in terms of pulping processes.
Okay. Let's move on with another one. What is the typical size of each of the digesters on your future plant? And what is the consistency at which you feed them? This is a detailed one. And at what temperature do you run them?
Okay, so the size of the digesters is between 8 and 10,000 cubic meters, and the input consistency is between 12 and 14% total solid. Again, they are run under mesophilic conditions, so 37 degrees. And in this way, we ensure, especially after pre-treatment, that we can get low enough viscosity of the material to utilize the organic matter properly.
Well, these are the end of our question Q&A session. Thank you so much for joining to the first episode of Paper Sludge Academy. We would like to see you on the second one as well. Just to remind, the second one will be about waste management in the paper industry, and it will happen on 7th of April. You can, again, contact us for further questions and inquiries, and you can follow us on our social media accounts. Thank you so much for joining. We wish you a pleasant day.
Thank you for joining.